Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back. We're starting to build up an I told you so vault all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on, but it does look like we're going to see some motion over at DC. Maybe not the motion we were expecting, but by the end of the year and by the close of the acquisition by Paramount of Warner Brothers, if that deal gets through the regulatory process, we may see Gunn moving away from DC. Where he's going next, well, as you saw in the thumbnail, is surprising. And what does that mean for the future over there? What does it mean for the future of DC? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder, as I start, always asking you to double check you're still subscribed. Believe it or not, people still tell me they're not subscribed. There's also about 42% of you that are watching this video that have never subscribed. So whether you're here for your first time or your 1000th time, please click the subscribe button and, change the color, and then click the silver bell icon and turn on all notifications. That way you don't miss anything and it doesn't cost you anything. That's absolutely free. And if you hit the thumbs up button for the early interaction, it really does help the channel, the videos, and me. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing all of that. I really appreciate it. Now let's jump into the story from our friends over at Cosmic Book News. We've got Matt McGloin writing, James Gunn quitting DC, possibly taking over Marvel? Well, that's a good question to ask. I don't really like question marks in a headline, but I use them all the time, so maybe I shouldn't be so critical. I do know this. Matt's been on top of this story since I think the very beginning. And he says, exactly as I said, now YouTuber John Campea is publicly predicting James Gunn won't stick around once Paramount takes control of Warner Brothers Discovery, which Paramount has said is expected to close later this year. And it will, because as I explained the other day on a video that I did, there's a ticking clock on this. It has to finish by a certain date, or else every quarter it doesn't adds 25 cents to each share. It's going to cost them way more money if they can't execute. They've already paid an exit fee for Netflix to get out of the way, and now we're moving into, well, what Campea thinks. And he has some good contacts, so it may be a little combination of instincts and access that are giving him these thoughts. Anyway, let's take a look at it. So Campea makes it clear that he hasn't spoken to Gunn, and this is just his opinion. But he says he's 100% sure Gunn will go to Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav and ask to be let go from his contract before the end of the year, because Gunn isn't working for those guys. And that Zaslav will let him exit, at least according to his YouTube video he dropped recently, which of course is quoted in this article, and you can certainly go and take a look at it if you want to. But the claims made by him just aren't surprising. DC only got Gunn because, well, they needed to push Gunn out of Marvel for a little while because of, well, some of the things in his past. Obviously, Warner didn't care that much, and by the time everything shifted over at Marvel, nobody really cared very much for whatever he did in the past, his transgressions, which, again, are more than a few, but he ultimately just kind of walked away from a lot of those scot-free, unlike somebody like Kevin Spacey or other similar figures like a Weinstein type, which, again, I'm not saying or drawing an equal amount of negative publicity that Weinstein brought to his particular studio. Gunn didn't do anything all that awful, but again, not great things in the world of cinema, and usually you get put in the penalty box for a long period of time. So to finish up what Campea was claiming, says that at Marvel, if he ends up back there, he's Kevin Feige's heir apparent. And I think he's going to end up back at Marvel, and he will become Kevin Feige's heir apparent to take over Marvel after Kevin Feige finally goes. That's what I think is going to happen. That's the roadmap that I see happening here. But there is no way James, I can't imagine this scenario that James Gunn, because we all know how James Gunn feels about Donald Trump, whether you think he's right to feel that way or whether you think he's wrong to feel that way. We all know how James Gunn feels about Donald Trump. And Ellison's are Donald Trump's little F boys, according to Campea. Yikes.
Tilt your head back and go, woke, woke.
So I just don't see any reality in which James Gunn stays. He's gonna quit. Look, could that happen? Is that likely to happen? Would he quit otherwise? Certainly. But he could be let go of his contract, especially since what he's made so far hasn't done so well. And you've already heard my opinion of Drunk Supergirl. I don't think it's going to do well at all. Very below expectations indeed. Campea's core argument almost can't be argued with. His take is simple. It follows what Matt McGloin said, as everybody knows how Gunn feels about Donald Trump, which isn't very good at all. Campea paints the Ellisons as Trump aligned, which was previously reported by Variety and many other trade sites. I'm not sure why they say that outside of David Ellison showing up at the State of the Union speech. There were a lot of business people there. I don't find that unusual. But Campea says he can't picture Gunn staying once Paramount is effectively in charge. Look, some people are immature like that. I have gone through transitions of various corporations I've worked throughout the years. It wasn't that big a deal. There are always reductions in staff, changes in structure, all the things that come along with that. But at the same time, largely they try to keep the people intact. And you're a fool to get rid of institutional knowledge and history that allows you to keep doing the same thing and making the same products, providing the same services, whatever it is that you do. Anyway, the Trump factor keeps landing on Superman. As I previously pointed out, the politics got louder the day Superman hit, when the official White House account posted the Trump as Superman meme using the classic truth, justice, and the American way. That's no coincidence, and kind of a finger in the eye of Gunn, who wanted to ditch that kind of a sentiment because he doesn't really like America. At least that's my perspective. What's yours? And Gunn already has a public anti-Trump record, and there's no arguing that. This is also why the Gunn quits speculation doesn't feel random. Gunn has been publicly anti-Trump for years, including blunt attacks on Trump's first term. That history is exactly what Campea is leaning on when he says he can't imagine Gunn choosing to work under Ellison. Once again, you can definitely pick and choose your jobs and the people that you work for or work with. That's something that you are born with. That's your birthright, at least here in this country. You can walk away from an employer as long as you don't violate any contractual terms, basically at will, especially if you're in an at-will employment state. But would that be a smart move, or should he go out with a little bit more of a polite maneuver? Which is kind of what he's going to ask for from Zaslav, the opportunity to be let go. Well, you can already have some pretty good reasons to let him go. His movies didn't do very well, and so far, nobody's really jumping for joy at Creature Commandos, and I don't really agree with people about Peacemaker. I think it's kind of garbage. But I have very little expectations for Lanterns. This is the only thing that I think looked halfway decent. And again, Drunk Supergirl. That's coming. And it doesn't look good. Yikes. So Campea's Marvel angle is pure speculation, but the logic is obvious. Gunn's biggest mainstream wins were at Marvel with the 3 Guardians films and the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Again, those productions were largely led by his hand, with obviously contributions from the Russo brothers. And I'm going to just say this. I think Gunn isn't bad. I think that he's bad for DC. I don't think he's bad for Marvel. After all, this is the guy that they basically kind of shaped so that they could turn him into the cosmic boss. That was kind of the plan. He's also the guy that kind of outlined what the timeline was going to look like in all these various phases. And when he left, well, all of that kind of went out the window, which is why we got Phase 4, Phase Dive, and, well, Phase Deep 6, which we're in the midst of now. On that note, look, there's a lot of existing relationships at Marvel. So if he leaves DC, he's not gonna, get thrown to the wolves. He's gonna do fine. And Hollywood is gonna line up for him over there. Maybe not so much at DC. We'll have to see. But I suspect that this is kind of the roadmap for what will happen. But I have to ask you, what do you think? Do you think it's likely Gunn's going to leave DC in favor of Marvel? Do you think Marvel will welcome him with open arms with the idea that he becomes the heir apparent for Kevin Feige? Do you think that Gunn never should have left Marvel in the first place? And finally, do you see a future where we have one more transition, as I suggested in a previous video, to Zack Snyder's participation at DC and Gunn back involved with Marvel? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Wash your hands because it's good hygiene. And you want to stay away from the cold and flu season, guys. It's happening right now. And until next time, see ya. But maybe not watching more Gunn stuff.